All right, today we're going to start working on our perspective. Start working on creating boxes and making them feel like they have a sort of space to them. Start working on being good liars and creating that space in our drawings to kind of help give the illusion of depth. And so we're going to talk real quick about some basic perspective information, and then we're going to go and I'm going to walk you through how to create some 1-point perspective stuff today, and then we'll work on 2 and 3-point later. So you'll need a couple sheets of paper today, straight edge. I prefer to work in a pen on these. I know sometimes that kind of screws you guys because you want to erase, but I prefer a pen. And so basically our objectives are, and this isn't just the objectives for today, this is going to be the objectives for the next probably a couple weeks, is creating a box using linear perspective to create the illusion of depth. And then the student will be able to adapt the knowledge of perspective to create depth without guiding lines. Student will be able to compose boxes rotating through space with depth. All right, and so if you know anything about perspective, perhaps you had art in middle school, you know about vanishing points and the parallel lines. Typically, vanishing points are anywhere your edges disappear to in a perspective drawing. Okay, and so for every set of box, there are 3 sets of vanishing points because there are 3 dimensions in space. Now, we don't always use all 3. For example, if we go to here, some of our vanishing points are infinitely in some direction. And so if I look at this top example here, here's 2 point, we're looking at the corner of a box, and you see 2 vanishing points where they're disappearing off to the left and to the right, and that's because the vanishing point that should either be at the top or the bottom is perfectly lined up, and so they disappear off to infinity. The second one there is 1-point perspective. The horizontal and the vertical both disappear infinitely, and so they're perfectly parallel. And we'll kind of talk about and kind of demonstrate the differences of those as we go along. And so how do I know which one to use? Well, it depends on what's pointing at you. If the plane of the box or the flat edge of the box or whatever it is we happen to be drawing, a building, is pointing at us, we'll use 1-point perspective. If the corner or the edge is pointing at us, right, the edge of the point or the box is pointing at us, we'll use 2-point perspective. It'll disappear to the left, to the right usually. If a corner is pointing at us, we'll use all 3 points, and we will cover 3-point. We probably won't do a project associated with it, and will be pretty difficult for some of you, and that's okay. We'll do some projects and some drills where if you just give it your best shot, I'm going to give you the points. Just don't feel like, oh my god, I can't figure this out, so I'm going to fail. You'll grow a little bit. You may not grow to the length some of your classmates are, but that's okay. Some of this stuff spatially is kind of hard to wrap your mind around when you're beginning at drawing, and that's fine. We'll figure out that other stuff later. And so today we're going to start by basically recreating these images, but we're only going to work on 1 point today, so the image on the far left, and we will basically recreate each of these one each day, and then we'll do some other assignments over perspective. But for right now, get a sheet of paper out and lay a horizontal horizon line across it long ways. So we're going to do a real quick, simple 1-point perspective boxes. If you've had middle school art, you probably did this. Real simple, shouldn't take too long. I'm going to walk through 2 of them together, and then you can knock out 10 of them, and I'll talk about how you're supposed to, what specific 10 you need to knock out. And so real quick, I'm going to make a horizon line or an eye level line in the middle of my paper. Understand that I didn't waste a bunch of time measuring it because it doesn't need to be exactly in the middle. We call it an eye level line because sometimes it's lined up with our eye. Okay, I didn't waste a bunch of time measuring, making sure it's exactly in the middle, because it changes. It's called an eye level line because it actually changes with my height. And so if I'm sitting on the ground, my eye level line is going to be lower on my paper. If I'm standing up, it's going to be higher up. If I'm sitting in a chair, it might be in the middle. And so don't feel the need to measure that out and make it perfect. When we do our drawings of the hallways in person, your horizon line should not be in the middle of your paper. Okay. For right now, I'm just going to make a small, square rectangle up here in the top left. I don't care what size it is, just get it on there. Okay? Now, for 1-point perspective, the plane of the box, the flat edge, is pointing at us. And so we're only going to have one vanishing point. So somewhere in the middle, make a vanishing point. Now, again, this vanishing point lines up with where we're viewing at. And so if I were drawing the hallway and I was sitting on the left side of the right side of the hallway, it would be on the right or on the left, okay? And so don't feel like you need to measure that either. That's going to change depending on your viewpoint, and I'll show examples of this when we actually go out in the hallway and draw. When I'm drawing a box above or below my line, I'm going to take all 4 corners to my vanishing point. And we're going to go ahead and draw through our box as if we can see through it. Okay, so we're going to draw all the way through the box. We're not just going to draw the 3 closest, which might be different. And the reason we're going to do that is because I want you to be able to visualize that space. Okay? After we've taken all 4 corners to our vanishing point, then I need to make edges parallel to the edges I currently have. And so since I'm using a simple square, I'll be making a simple square. If I were doing something a little more interesting, and I'll maybe show an example of that, I would mimic the edge I'm drawing. Okay, and so right here, I'm going to start by finding this edge right there. Now, it mimics this edge. To find this edge, I'm going to drop that down, but I want it to meet up with that edge. So it's perfectly horizontal. I'm going to rule around here. It's perfectly horizontal, and it's going to match up with that corner. Like that. Okay? Now, if we were drawing these and we weren't drawing them like we would see through them, we'd actually just stop there. We'd erase this line in the back. No big deal. But I want you to draw like you can see through these cubes, and so we're going to do the same thing right here. And then we should have these 2 line up, and this should be a perfectly vertical line. And so I'll have something like that where I can see through the box, and I can see this back corner even though it's not. It's covered up by the front corners. All right, when you're doing a line, say a little bit differently on the line, it's just slightly different. And so I'm going to start, and I'm going to make the rectangle I'm working on a little taller. So that I can demonstrate something here. I'm going to take, now if I'm just drawing this and I'm not drawing it like I can see through it, I'll take the 2 closest edges all the way to my vanishing point, like chia. And then I would finish it off with a vertical line, and that would be my box. But I want you to draw it like you can see through it. So draw all 4 corners. This will be a little confusing for some of you, and that's okay. So I'm going to start with this vertical here. It goes from the front line to the front lines, the long one. I'm going to lay in my horizontal, drop that in. Let me see that line. Make sure I'm lined up properly. There we go. And then these 2. Oh, my pen didn't make a mark. Hold on. These 2 should connect. And I have a box that I can see through right there. All right. Now, sometimes you'll go to lay in that last line and they won't line up perfect. It just means you probably made a mistake somewhere back here at the very beginning, and it kind of gets worse and worse and worse and worse until the very end. You know, that's not perfectly flat. I kind of lied a little bit and made them match up. You might have to do that too. Now, pay attention. It's like the only math I make you do, and I had a poor girl in the Odyssey who wasn't paying attention, and I said, I want 4 boxes above the line, 4 boxes below the line, and I want 2 on the line. And this poor girl looked at me all cross-eyed and said, so 6? That's not 6. And every time a number was said for the rest of that semester, that poor girl heard so 6 from every one of her classmates. So make sure you do 10 boxes. I'm doing them in pen. I highly recommend you do them in pen. If this all gets too confusing, let's say I put 4 or 5 boxes on this sheet and like I start to do more, but all of these lines are getting too complicated and jumbled, you're perfectly fine to do your 10 boxes over 3 different sheets, if that's what you want to do, or 2 different sheets. Don't feel like you're married to this. And so I want 4 boxes above, 4 boxes below, 2 on the line. Okay? These 2 count if you walked through with me. Go ahead and get at it.